Hi everyone, it's Lauren, and today I wanted to film a video on my Disney audition experience and any tips I have, just what it was like for me, and my sort of plan for the future. So first, I'm going to talk about what my audition was like. So my audition was April 14th at Hubbard Street Dance in Chicago, and I live in the suburbs of Chicago, so it wasn't really possible for me to do one in Orlando, so I sort of just kept checking DisneyAuditions.com, waiting for an audition to be in Chicago for a character performer. Going into the audition, I actually wasn't planning on doing it if I got it. It was just for the experience because it was on my bucket list to audition, and I had decided going into it that if I got it, I wasn't even going to do it. On April 14th, it was a Thursday, I had school that day. I just graduated high school, so I was a senior in high school, and I didn't go to school that Thursday. And I got on the train in my town, and I took the train to Ogilvy Station in Chicago, and I got an Uber to Hubbard Street Dance, and it only took a few minutes by Uber, so it wasn't bad at all. So once I got there, I went in and I just saw a bunch of girls standing around and a few boys. There were only around 5 or 6 boys at my audition actually. But I was just standing around. I started talking to a few girls who were standing by the door, and there were only about maybe 20 or 25 people when I had gotten there. The audition started at 10 and I got there at around 9:15, so I would recommend getting there a little bit early. So I started talking to this group of girls and they were so nice, and we were talking about if we've auditioned before, where we're from, how old we are, things like that. So shortly after I arrived, they told us that we could come into the room into one of the dance studios, and it was about maybe 9:30, probably earlier than that actually. It was probably around 9:25. I had only been there maybe 10 minutes, but they let us come into a room and we got our numbers. And although I had gotten there earlier than some of the people who got numbers before me, in the end it didn't really matter at all. So I was number 31, and this one girl who I became friends with, Zoe, she was number 32, and we went into the room and we were just sitting, and we went into the dance studio and we just sat down in a little circle, and I'll insert a picture here of a picture I took with some of the friends I made there. So we just sat and waited for a while talking. We made some new friends, some more people joined our circle. One other girl from my school was at the audition actually. And so we were just talking about Disney and what we wanted to do if we were in college, sort of just what our lives were. And at 10 o'clock exactly, the casting director and the choreographer came into the room, and there were 100 people there, maybe 90, 98, 99, but there were definitely about 100 people there. And so they just talked to us for a little bit, and they were super energetic and very nice, so I really liked them. So they just talked to us for a few minutes, and they had us go on our phones and sign into a Google document. They told us the link, and then we signed into the Google document with our name, but they had us do that, and then they broke us into 1 through 50 or 1 through 49 and like 50 through 100. And so they broke us into 2 groups, so I was in the first group, and we all stood up, and I was wearing a pink shirt. It was like a 3/4 length sleeves. It had chiffon here, and then it was just like cotton down, but it was pink, so I thought it was nice because that stands out a little more. I would recommend wearing a more bright color, not so much black. I just feel like that doesn't stand out as much. So I had a pink shirt on because I wanted to look cute, but it's also comfy, so I could dance in it. And I wore cropped yoga leggings, and I brought jazz shoes, and I brought my character shoes, and I was wearing little white Vans, but I changed into I was wearing tan jazz shoes. So I changed into the tan jazz shoes, and we learned a very easy dance. I could tell you right now what it was. It was march, 2, 3, 4, box step, and grapevine, clap, 3 step, turn, clap, clap. So for anybody who's danced ever, I think pretty much ever, it'll probably be very easy for you. I learned it like that because I've been dancing a long time, so it was pretty simple for me. Some people who maybe have never danced or are really terrible at dancing, or just that's not their thing, it might be a little harder to pick it up so quickly. But basically, if you had any dance experience at all, it'll be fine for you. So we learned that dance, and we also learned an animation. So they would call out things like pretend you're licking an ice cream cone, or pretend you're in a parade and you see a kid with a balloon, like pretend you have the balloon. So it was just kind of, we were acting out like we were in a parade, and we would see different things and respond to it. And once we had learned both of those things, we lined up in 4 columns, and they just lined us up by number. And the dance studio was going this way, and we were lined up here, and the choreographer was over here with us, and then the casting director was over here with a clipboard. So 4 at a time, we would go across the floor. We would do the animation first, so we'd stand there and do the animation, and then they would say, okay, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you'd start the dance. And I believe, yes, you did the dance 4 times. I guess so they can look at each person for one full time maybe. So we did it 4 times, and seriously, just smile so big. I was having so much fun. I didn't even have to try to smile because I just thought it was so much fun because it's like a Disney audition. It was great. And so just really smile so big and be very animated because it's Disney World. You want to be animated. My audition, I should have clarified, was parade performer and character performer. So just be super animated. Even if you mess up, don't be like, oh no, I messed up, like get all like frazzled about it. Just keep going and smiling, or just like even just like jam out, like do something. Just keep smiling and don't act like, oops, I messed up, I suck, you know? So after we did that, we went back around the line, and they called us. The casting director took like 30 seconds, and then he had us all sit down, and he called out a bunch of numbers, and those who weren't called were cut. So I made it through the first round, and I think around 30 people from our group were cut. So maybe more. It might have been like 35 people from our group were cut. So there were about 15 of us left. So the people who were cut left, and then we went upstairs, and we went to a separate dance studio upstairs, and they gave us some sheets, and we filled out some forms with our name. They didn't ask our age, it just asked if we were over 18. And so we did that, and they measured us. And I don't know what people say about like Disney height and stuff. He didn't tell me what height I am. I know I'm 5'3", 5'3 and a half, but I didn't see what he did. But honestly, I don't think it really matters. The princesses are generally between 5'3" and 5'7", but I know that if you're really good, I'm sure they'd make an exception if you're like 5'2" or 5'8". I really don't think that's that big of a deal. It's just when it's like you're like 5'11", that might be a little too tall or too short, you know? But it all depends. They have that information online at the audition, DisneyAuditions.com. They do have that information when it has the audition description, it says what heights they're looking for too. But anyway, they measured me, and my guy who was measuring me, he actually goes, stand up a little bit straighter. And I was like, okay, whatever you want. And he said, oh, look, you grew. And I was like, okay. So I don't know what that was about. But he measured us, and then we waited around for a while. I called my dad, I think it was, yeah, because my mom was teaching. So I called my dad, and I told him, like, made it past the first cut, woohoo. And I got a water bottle. I don't know, we had a lot of time to kill because that's when the second group was learning the dance and animation and doing that and doing the cuts. So once they had finally finished that, we went downstairs, and it might have been like 45 minutes, but we went downstairs, and in total there were about 30 or 31 of us left out of the 100 who were there. So we learned a harder dance, and it wasn't super difficult. I think if you haven't had any dance experience, it would be more difficult for you. But if you've had dance experience, it should be fine for you. And so once we learned the dance, we also learned the animation, and we had the zookeeper animation. So you act like you're a zookeeper. I'm like putting on my gloves, putting on my hat, you know, opening the door, getting food for the animal, whatever it was. And then they would say transform, and you would turn into the animal that you were feeding. So that's pretty cool. They told us, they were like, we know you're gonna feel really stupid doing this, but you can all feel stupid together. So it was kind of funny because they were like, we know you feel dumb, but just do it anyway. And once we had learned that, they gave us sufficient time to learn it, I'd say. Then they called us back in groups of 4, and we would go in groups of 4 into the dance studio, into the room. Hi, so sorry about the change in scenery, but as I was importing my videos, I realized that a bunch of the footage got corrupted. So now I'm refilming the end of this video. But anyway, I'll just pick up where I left off. So they called us into the room in groups of 4, and once we got in there, we did the animation first, the zookeeper animation first. I'm sorry, this is my cat. We did the zookeeper animation first, and then we did the dance 2 times in a row. And out of those groups of 4, they would call a couple of our numbers, or maybe no numbers. And out of that group of 4, they called 2 or 3 of us, and they said they just needed to keep us for something else. And if you weren't called there, you could go home, and it didn't mean you were cut. It just meant that they didn't need to see any more from you. And you could receive an email from you're on file up to 6 months. So it's pretty vague, but I guess that's all the information they can give you. But they kept me and also my friend I had made. So we waited until all the groups were done, and of the people they kept, they divided the rest of us into about half and half. It was approximately half and half, I'd say. And they took 10 or 11 of us upstairs, and it was all girls. And once we got up there, the casting director told us that we were being considered to be a face character, a lookalike character, and so I was really excited about that. So he had us pull our hair back, and we stood against a wall holding up our number, our little name tag number, and he had us stand up against a wall holding our little name tag number thing. Mine just said 31, and so we faced the front and smiled, and then we'd face the side and smile, and he took pictures. And he said that at Disney they actually Photoshop wigs onto you, so I thought that was pretty funny. And after that, he gave us a couple scripts, and we went over the scripts while he went downstairs for a little while, and we just waited upstairs going over them. We had Elsa and Rapunzel. I chose to do Rapunzel just because I thought her script had a little bit more emotion in it than Elsa's. I wasn't a big fan of Elsa's script. So he came back upstairs, and we all lined up in the hallway, and he called us in one by one. Once it was my turn and I got in there, I just smiled and was really friendly to him. And he had me say my name and do the little monologue, and he let us do it twice. The first one was for practice. So then after I did it the first time, the second time he recorded it with his phone. So he recorded me doing the monologue, and he pretty much said, "You're all done. You may receive an email from 1 week to 6 months." And that's about it. So I left, and I took an Uber back to the train station, and I took a train home, and a week and a half later, I received an email from Disney, and I was so excited, and I opened it up, and it was inviting me to apply. So I actually Facebooked a friend who works there, and she basically told me that that means I got it, and I was freaking out. I was like, what the heck? But so I submitted my application as well as my resume and a cover letter, because I asked for those as well. And then the next day I got an email asking me to set up a phone interview. So I set up my phone interview for later that afternoon because I wanted to do it as soon as possible. And on my phone interview, basically she only asked me one question. She just kind of asked me why I wanted to work for Disney. And I'd already been thinking about that, so I had a pretty good answer for that one, I'd say, just because I'd been already thinking about it. And then she pretty much just told me what characters I was. She told me who I'd be friends with, and I asked her if she had a seasonal position available, and she said she'd have to get back to me because she was going to be gone for a week and a half. She wasn't going to be working, so she had to wait until she got back to work to find out if the casting directors emailed her back saying if there was a seasonal position available or not. But that gave me a week and a half to kind of ponder and to think about it, and I really decided I didn't want to just do it for the summer. I wanted to do it for the full year contract that they had offered to me. So I accepted the position, and I'm going to be working full-time at Walt Disney World for 1 year. I am moving July 30th, and August 1st, a Monday, I have meetings in the morning, and I think they're just measuring me and I'm signing some things in person. And then August 6th is my first day of training. So I'm so excited. I'm so honored to have this opportunity, and I'm going to be documenting it here. I'll be posting videos, vlogs, videos. Obviously, I won't be able to show everything or say everything because that's just not allowed. It's just Disney rules. I'm not allowed to say what characters I am, but I can say that I'm very happy with the characters I'm going to be, and I don't know. I wish I could say, but I can't. You can leave your guesses down below as to who you think I'm going to be friends with. I'm going to be friends with 2 characters. I'm going to be hanging out with them a lot. And I'm really excited, and I hope that you subscribe so you can stay tuned for more. So stay tuned, subscribe, and I hope you have a magical day. Goodbye!